So let's discuss another concept which is very important in conjugation with session state, which we have seen in the last video. So what are callback functions? Okay. So this video is about callback functions. So callback functions are those functions which we want to call on a certain event. So we have some widgets like st.write, st.chat input, and others. So on top of those widgets, if there is some event happening, let's say we are clicking a button. So if there is a button widget, and if I'm clicking that button, what we want to invoke some function. We want to call another custom function. Then what we can do is we can write all these things in a single sentence. We can write that, I will show you. So this is a way to call some custom functions. You have to define those functions and then you can pass those functions as a parameter. Okay, so there are three things important. One is like widgets. Okay, widgets or the components which we have been talking about. We widgets. Okay, we have widgets and the other is the events. So we have events like on submit, we have like on click, on change. So all these events are there. And the third is our function, our callback function. So all these three things are happening at the same time. We have a widget and there is some event which is happening on top of that event, and when that event occurs on that widget, what we want to call the custom functions. Okay, so that is where we use the callback functions. So if you see our last code, let me run this code. Okay, so if I write hi, hello, so there is the entire history of these messages. Now what we want to do is, here you can see we have like when the user, so this is our chat input widget. So this chat input widget is doing what? It is taking the input from the user and we are storing that value in a user input, and then we are checking whether it's a null or not. So instead of doing that, what essentially we can do is we can simply put all these things in a custom function, in a function, and we can call that function right from here. Okay, so let me do that. So let me define a function here. That function can be like handle user input. Okay, inside this function I will do pretty much same thing which I was doing here. So I will simply cut and paste. Okay, I have to improve indentation. So what I will do, I have clicked on tab. Now I have this condition. Super. All right. So what I can do is I can put my function callback function here like on submit. Okay. So whenever this chat user writes a message on the chat input, he can just click enter. On the submit, what we are going to do is we are calling this function. So this function will be called and then we can do whatever we were doing earlier. But so okay, we don't need that. Okay, so there is now another question is how to access the value which is being passed by user. Okay, so the user is passing some value, but how to capture that value inside your function? For that, Streamlit provides another way, which is like key. So you have to define a key and that we can name the key as an user underscore input. Okay, so this is my key. This can have any name. So what I'm doing is whenever this line is executed, a key is created in my session state. This is very important. By using this keyword key equal to user input, what I'm doing is I'm creating one session. I'm creating one, we have session state as a dictionary. Inside that dictionary we are adding one element, and this is having key as a user input, and the value will be the text which is being input by user. I think this is clear now. So we can access the value which is being passed by user through this key. But okay, so let's test that actually first, and then maybe we will call our callback function. Okay, so what I can do is I can simply write st.write in order to see whether that variable has been created or not, whether our user input key has been created or not. Let me print that value. Okay, so I will go back. This spelling is wrong. Okay, if I refresh, what I will see, this is none. Why this is none? This is none because I have not initialize it, right? User has not put anything inside right now. That's why, but it has created this particular key. You can see when I'm printing session dot state dot user input, or maybe let me put like user state, the entire object. Let me refresh. Tu, 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 tu. Okay, now you can see my session state has two variables. One is the user input which got created, but it has no value because user has not input any value. And the other is which we have defined explicitly by saying st.session and it is empty. I hope this is clear. So let me remove this now. And what I was doing is I was actually, did I remove something else? Control Z, right? So let me remove this print. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm calling my callback function and the event will be on submit, right? Because this is my chat input. Not all events will be applicable to all the widgets, right? Based on the widget, the event will be applicable. Okay, so I'm calling this function handle user input, and in order to access this value, as we have just seen, what I can do, I can tap into my session state. Superb. User input is equal to st.session input. So whenever user will put some value, it will go into my session state. From there I can access this user input and I can pass it into my code. Okay, so I can essentially comment these two lines, because anyway these messages are getting appended to my session state. I am iterating all the messages which are there. Okay, so this should ideally work fine. My first message is like hi, you can say hi. My second message is hello. So essentially we haven't changed any functionality in this particular piece of code. We have just learned how to use the callback functions and how to associate or the store the value of your widget, right? Or for example here the user was giving some input as a text. Okay, so how to store that value in a particular session so that we can retrieve it as and when required. So I hope this video was interesting and you learned something new. See you in the next lecture, guys.